Chapter 551 to 552. At the moment Yama's golden sword chopped through Nagato's neck, Nagato's rinnegan flashed, and a change happened. Yama, who couldn't perceive the sudden change, used his golden sword to cut through Nagato's body unimpeded. Slash. Puff. The golden sword fell and instantly slashed through Nagato and the ground behind him. As a result, another fissure extending up to several hundred meters appeared on the ground. There was another earthquake, and the smoke and dust soared through the sky. Although the battlefield was filled with dust, it didn't hinder Yama's vision as he looked at his golden sword and the place where he cut Nagato. But for some strange reason, rather than being relieved for having killed Nagato, Yama's expression turned into a frown. He could feel it. A moment ago he really cut through Nagato's body, a solid physical body, not the shadow clone kind of thing. But strangely enough, both Nagato's body and the blood that was supposed to have been present here are missing. This just didn't make any sense. Was I affected by some genjutsu? Muttered Yama with a confused expression, but soon denied this possibility because there is no disruption in his chakra flow. If I wasn't in a genjutsu and I did feel as if I cut through a body, then why is there no dead body of Nagato? And if there is no dead body, then who did I cut earlier? Moreover, the fact that there is no dead body. Ikea, does that mean Nagato is still alive? Thought Yama, with a doubtful expression on his face as he tried to analyze what exactly happened in that short instant. Yama had an intuitive feeling that the threat of Nagato still exists. No. It's better to say that Yama is quite certain of his feeling. The threat of Nagato has really not been dealt with. And being certain of his feeling, Yama vigilantly scanned the battlefield to find Nagato's real position. Not far away, Nagato knelt on the ground, his chest undulating violently as he desperately gasped. His body was shivering, his heart was beating fiercely, all his goosebumps were erected, and cold sweat was overflowing from his sweat pores. Just a moment ago, Nagato was able to feel the breath of death encroaching on him, and he knows in his heart that if he was even a microsecond late in doing what he did, he would have definitely died under the slash of Yama's golden sword. There is no otherwise but or if here. It was an absolute case. Had that sword touched him, his neck would have been chopped off and instantly turned into dust. The reason why Nagato is absolutely certain about the fact even his sage physique granted to him by the combination of Uzumaki and Hashirama DNA would not be able to withstand that sword for more than an instant is that one of his shadows that he used to change position with his real body has now turned into dust after being cut by that golden sword. That's right. At the moment, the blade of Yama's golden sword was about to slash through his neck. Nagato used the body replacement technique with one of his four shadows and barely avoided death at a hair's breadth. Although he avoided death by a very small margin, the breath of death is still lingering on his body, and the scene where his shadow instantly turned into dust at the moment of being slashed by the golden still makes his heart shiver. If instead of his shadow, it was him slashed by the golden sword, the result would have been exactly the same. He too would have instantly turned into dust. Damn it! His jutsu is definitely a combination of more than 3 chakra natures. Otherwise, it's completely impossible for it to disintegrate my shadow, thought Nagato, while spitting out the blood stuck in his throat, then stood up slowly. It has been already mentioned repeatedly that since having transplanted the Hashirama cells, Nagato has mastered new dojutsu. The new rinnegan dojutsu he has awakened is Limbo Border Jail. After awakening Limbo Border Jail, Nagato is able to project his shadow into Limbo, an invisible world that coexists with the physical world but is ordinarily impossible to detect or perceive. With the pair of rinnegan, Nagato can form up to 4 shadows. Each shadow has the same abilities as the real Nagato, with the added advantage of being untraceable. The shadows can attack targets, giving the appearance of an inexplicable force knocking them down, or they can defend Nagato, giving the appearance of an invisible wall around him. The shadows are invulnerable to any kind of physical damage and cannot be harmed through conventional means. A shadow's very formation can be used defensively, taking Nagato's place mid-attack as a sort of body replacement technique. Of course, after a certain amount of time, a shadow will need to return to Nagato's body, and he will likewise need to wait a certain amount of time before he can reform it. In the face of Yama's sudden attack just now, Nagato abruptly replaced position with one of his shadows to survive. Based on all the characteristics and abilities that the Limbo shadows have, it wouldn't be wrong to say that these 4 shadows even surpass Nagato's main body. Precisely why, from the fact that Yama's sword completely destroyed one of his Limbo shadows, Nagato knows that if that sword were to even touch his main body, then he would definitely die. After all, the Limbo clones are basically himself, other than the added advantage of being untraceable, and if even they couldn't survive Yama's sword, then how can he survive? The Limbo clones can be reformed after a certain amount of time, even if they are destroyed. But he himself cannot reform. Therefore, Nagato knows that he must be more cautious when dealing with Yama. At the same time, he also knows that he must take initiative, and decided to use Limbo clones to attack Yama. Limbo clones are his advantage, both numerically as well as strategically. Nagato knows that Yama shouldn't be able to see or sense his Limbo clones, and one can't fight something you can't see or sense. Moreover, with his Limbo clones, Nagato will be able to overwhelm Yama using the numerical advantage. If one him can't defeat Yama, then 2 him will do so. If 2 can't, then 3 will, and if even the 3 can't, then 4 and 5 will definitely defeat him. Nagato doesn't believe that Yama can fight against 5 him at the same time and still come out as the winner. Therefore, although a little scared, Nagato is also absolutely confident that he will be able to defeat Yama. So with all these thoughts in his mind, Nagato projected the other 3 Limbo clones and made them attack Yama. Yama didn't know Nagato's complicated thoughts. He was still pondering about how Nagato avoided his slash at such a close distance. Just how exactly did he do it? That slash just a few moments ago, Nagato should not have been able to avoid by any conventional means. And Yama is fairly certain that it wasn't a shadow clone that he killed, because a mere shadow clone would never give such a firm touch at the moment of being slashed by something like Golden Wheel Reincarnation Explosion. Therefore, Yama is quite confused and unable to deduce what exactly happened. Of course, all these thoughts didn't stop Yama from quickly finding the position of Nagato. Just as Yama discovered Nagato hidden within the cover of smoke and dust, he found out that Nagato was looking in his direction, or more like, Nagato's gaze was specifically locked on his body, which surprised Yama. He shouldn't be able to see me through the cover of smoke. Does that mean he has also learned sensory jutsu? Thought Yama. It is exactly as Yama thought. Although Nagato's rinnegan doesn't allow him to see through dust and smoke, Uzumaki clan's unique chakra sensory jutsu, Mind's Eye of Kagura, still allowed him to find the position of Yama, even through the obstruction of smoke and dust. Anyway, that's not important. What's important is that Yama could see chakra gathering in Nagato's rinnegan, which means Nagato is trying to do something. What exactly is Nagato trying to do, Yama is not sure. And Yama couldn't just make another attack on Nagato without figuring out how exactly Nagato dodged the previous attack. After all, that scene was extremely bizarre. So with this intention, Yama quietly waited for Nagato to make his move. After a few moments of waiting and observing, Yama felt 2 dim things approaching him. one from the left side and the other from the right side. "Huh? What is that?" thought Yama with a shocked expression. Even with his Tenseigan fully activated, Yama couldn't clearly recognize what exactly are the two things approaching him at an extremely fast speed. Therefore, he was extremely shocked. Is there still some kind of jutsu that even the Tenseigan can't perceive? But Yama didn't have enough time to get his answer or make any deduction, as the two things had already approached him and attacked him. Bang, 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 bang. Accompanied by the muffled sound of fists and feet hitting his body, Yama's figure flew back sharply and heavily slammed into the ground. Puff! Blood spurted out of his mouth at the moment of collision. What the hell? This was the only question in his mind, as it was going numb and his body was painful. In just a short exchange that took place a few instants ago, he was hit more than several dozen times, and each hit he took was strong enough to smash mountains. Slammed heavily on the ground, Yama resisted the pain he was feeling and fiercely waved his golden sword to force the two things back. Then he too took some more distance from Nagato. Up until this moment, Yama hasn't clearly seen what those two things were. But one thing that Yama has understood through pain is the fact the raw power of those two things is high enough to smash mountains into rubble, which is completely inconsistent with their small size. Moreover, the two things are fast enough to somewhat keep up with Yama's speed and also manage to hurt him. You must know that when using the Tenseigan chakra mode, Yama's speed and strength are improved by several dimensions. And because of the coating of Tenseigan chakra, normal attacks can't even get past the defense of the chakra cloak, much less hurt him. And yet, those two things could hurt him. This fact implies just how much raw strength those two things have, and this fact also made Yama raise the threat level of Nagato higher. Of course, Yama wasn't the only one shocked. Nagato on the other side was even more surprised than Yama and thought, "He can perceive my limbo clones? Just how? Limbo clones should only be perceivable through the rinnegan that can see through space. Does that mean he really has the rinnegan?" Because the limbo clones do not exist in the physical world, they cannot be perceived by conventional means. Although Yama was able to coincidentally destroy his first limbo clone, Nagato didn't think that Yama can perceive his limbo clone, but it seems that might not the case, and he more and more felt that Yama might also possess the rinnegan. To see the limbo world, one needs the rinnegan, and to sense the existence of the limbo world, one must have sensory skills at the level of six-path Sennin mode. Of course, Yama has neither does he have the rinnegan, nor has he mastered the six-path Sennin mode, but the insight of his Tenseigan is no inferior to the rinnegan. Although Tenseigan can't see through space unlike the rinnegan, it can still see chakra. The limbo clones, although existing in the limbo world, they are still chakra, and Yama's Tenseigan is allowing him to see that chakra, albeit barely and unclearly, because the limbo clones are present in a different dimension. This is also the reason why Yama called Nagato's limbo clones those two things rather than those two people. But Nagato doesn't know this fact. He felt that Yama is able to see his limbo clones, which made him completely shocked. Nagato clearly understands that besides all their special abilities, the main reason why limbo clones are extremely powerful is because of other people's inability to perceive them. Obviously, you can't defend or attack something you can neither see nor sense. But if someone can perceive them, the threat of the limbo clones will obviously be reduced. Although the limbo clones will still give him a numerical advantage against Yama, it won't be like before, when just looking at Yama was more than enough to kill him. Moreover, for those standing at the pinnacle of the shinobi world, such as Yama, who can turn anything they attack into dust, the numerical advantage won't be much. Advantageous. Thinking of all these conclusions, Nagato more and more felt that his initial absurd idea might just be true. Yama might just indeed be his so-called natural enemy. As he retreated sharply, Yama did not forget to fight back and waved the golden sword towards both, Nagato in the distance as well as towards the two things that are repeatedly trying to kill him. Slash! Boom! The sword that Yama hurriedly waved while distancing himself, although failed to cut both Nagato and the two things who were already prepared for the attack, nonetheless still bought enough time to Yama for him to readjust his state and safely land on the ground. After regaining his distance, Yama injected more chakra into the pair of Tenseigan in his eye sockets and tried his best to better and more clearly observe the two things that almost killed him, while also analyzing the strange events that have happened in the past few seconds in order to understand what exactly is going on here. Those two things just now, were they some kind of clone? But Nagato shouldn't be able to use such a bizarre clone jutsu, right? Is it some kind of new jutsu that the Akatsuki organization created? One after another, countless thoughts flashed by in Yama's mind as he tried to figure out what kind of jutsu is he facing now. Although coincidentally, one thing everyone cannot deny is that several extremely talented people are or have been part of the Akatsuki organization during its second iteration, and it wouldn't be wrong to say that a few of them are among the best of the best in the entire shinobi world when it comes to their concerned field of expertise. If these people were to really put their minds to it, then it would be neither strange nor impossible for the Akatsuki organization to be able to create such a bizarre jutsus in a very short amount of time if they really desire to do so. Considering this obvious fact, Yama's first assumption was that this is a new jutsu created by Nagato and his subordinates. Of course, Yama didn't consider the possibility that the jutsu Nagato is using right now might be Uchiha Madara's exclusive rinnegan dojutsu, Limbo Border Jail. The reason why he didn't consider this possibility is actually just a mental block, or perhaps some sort of overconfidence, or maybe just a superiority complex brought on by knowing almost everything about the Naruto-verse. It is indeed a true fact that in the Naruto canon, neither Nagato nor Obito ever used Limbo while in possession of Madara's rinnegan, which led Yama, who is obviously subconsciously influenced by his prior knowledge of the Naruto-verse, to subconsciously ignore this particular possibility at the first thought. Therefore, even now, Yama is not certain what those two things are, and is trying to find more information about them, which would give him a better understanding of this jutsu. One should always remember that a battle between fellow shinobis is a battle of information. As long as one shinobi has more information over the other, that is, his enemy, the chances of winning increase by several folds. This was taught to him by Orochimaru back when he just graduated from the academy, and Yama has never once forgotten these words of Orochimaru. Therefore, without gaining a proper understanding of Nagato's jutsu, Yama acted cautiously and restrained as he tried to figure out whether his guesses are correct or not. Of course, the other party was also taught by the Sannin Jiraiya as such. He too understands the essence of a battle between shinobi. He did not want to give Yama enough time to continue his analysis and decided to speed up the attack frequency. Whoosh, whoosh! As Yama retreated sharply, the two vague things again came towards him. It's weird. Yama's brows under his mask wrinkled at this moment as we looked at the two things. The two things repeatedly shuttled back and forth in the cover of dust and smoke, while closely following behind Yama. But the strange thing is that neither did they leave any trail behind them, nor were there any traces of their presence in the physical world. Even Yama, who can use Tenseigan chakra mode to buff all his attributes several times, can't do such a thing. The reason is that as long as something has a physical state, then no matter how agile or nimble they are while moving, it would inevitably leave behind some kind of trail and traces. These traces may not be visible to the naked eye, but shouldn't be hidden from Yama's Tenseigan, which can perceive even extremely minute details. But the fact of the matter is that he isn't perceiving any trail left behind by the two things. In fact, there is even no movement in the air particles around those two things. And Yama knows that such a thing only leads to one possibility, which is, does that mean they have no physical state? However, this thought was soon denied by Yama. No, they definitely have physical states, else why am I still feeling such terrible pain? In the short exchange of a few moments ago, Yama, who was sort of unprepared to face such a bizarre thing, obviously suffered some injuries. Although most of those injuries will be healed by the Tenseigan chakra, the feeling of pain is still vivid in his mind. As such, Yama is fairly certain that those two things definitely have a physical state. Else it's completely impossible for them to be able to injure him. As Yama tried to continue his analysis, he was again interrupted as the two things suddenly speeded up and almost caught up to him. Seeing this, the corners of Yama's mouth twitched in annoyance. He is not the kind of guy who is willing to suffer needlessly or be bullied one-sidedly, so seeing that the two things have almost rushed up, Yama grinned evilly. Let's see what are those things going to do in this situation. With this thought in his mind, Yama deliberately waited for the last moment. Just as the two things were about to hit him again, he suddenly dispersed the golden wheel reincarnation explosion in his hand. At the same instant, he merged two truth-seeking orbs together and changed their shape into a spherical shell with himself caged inside the spherical shell's protection. Boom! Bang, bang, bang! The instant spherical shell of truth-seeking orb was formed. Several muffled sounds of impacts resounded on the battlefield. The huge force capable of shaking the mountains produced visible ripples when pounded on the black surface. In the distance, Nagato, who watched this scene, opened his mouth wide with an incredulous expression. Just what is that black substance? Not only it is dangerous to physical touch, but it is also strong enough to be able to completely shield him from my Limbo clone's attacks this easily. Nagato couldn't be more clear about the raw power of each of his Limbo clones. Even if it was Hiruko using his steel release to defend against the attack of his Limbo clone, when actually hit by it, he was simply knocked out cold with just one hit. Such a degree of attack power is not something easily blockable. Nagato would still understand and find it acceptable if Yama were to personally block those attacks, but to be able to completely negate the raw power of the attacks, just using that black substance. This is simply cheating. Of course, Nagato wasn't the only one surprised. Yama was also full of surprises. Although it can be said that Yama used the truth-seeking orbs to defend against the two vague shadows, however, it wouldn't be wrong to say that he was attacking them indirectly through the truth-seeking orbs. Everyone basically knows that only people with the six-path chakra can effectively touch truth-seeking orbs. If those who do not have the six-path chakra touch the truth-seeking orbs, they would disintegrate on both physical and spiritual levels. Even the forbidden Jutsu Edo Tensei that blurs the boundary of life and death, as well as gives the so-called infinite chakra and regenerating bodies, cannot resist being disintegrated upon being touched or damaged by the truth-seeking orbs. So, using this concept, even the two vague things shouldn't be able to avoid being disintegrated upon contact with the truth-seeking orbs, right? But the fact of the matter is that such a thing is not happening here. The two vague things, although getting injured to some degree, are not actually disintegrating. In fact, not only are they not disintegrating, but are also able to repeatedly make mountain-shaking attacks on the surface of the spherical shell made up of the truth-seeking orbs. This is just unreasonable and unscientific. I can't perfectly capture them even with my Tenseigan, because they are extremely difficult to perceive, as if they are almost imperceptible. They have a physical state when trying to attack me, yet they do not leave behind any trace on the physical world, as if they do not have any physical state, or more like they are incorporeal in the physical world. They do not disintegrate upon contact with truth-seeking orbs. It's as if, although they are hitting the truth-seeking, they are also being protected by something, or perhaps being separated by something. There is more than one of them at a time, and each of them is extremely strong, almost as strong as Nagato, but with the added advantage of being extremely difficult to perceive, imperceptible, incorporeal, do not disintegrate. At the same time, they are as strong as Nagato. Moreover, they do not disintegrate, are incorporeal and imperceptible, incorporeal, imperceptible, incorporeal, imperceptible and incorporeal. Wait! That's it! With a flash of thunder, Yama suddenly figured it out. It makes sense now. Imperceptible, incorporeal, do not disintegrate at the same time, as strong as Nagato. When combining all these abilities, Yama could only think of one jutsu that matches such a description: Uchiha Madara's rinnegan dojutsu, Limbo Border Jail, and on the moon. After hurriedly rushing to the temple where the giant Tenseigan is enshrined, Toneri sensed the blooming chakra fluctuations, and his face became extremely gloomy. Although extremely angry, Toneri did not immediately cut off the resonance between the giant Tenseigan and the shinobi world on the earth. Instead, he came closer to the giant Tenseigan, stretched out his right hand, and gently pressed it on the surface of the giant Tenseigan. The moment he did so, Toneri's consciousness plunged into the giant Tenseigan, and he looked at the distant earth. By following the trail of chakra flowing towards the earth, the distance of more than several 100,000 miles was covered in just a few breaths, penetrated through the several layers of the atmosphere as well as clouds, and vision, granted to Toneri by the giant Tenseigan, finally focused on the land of fire, more specifically on the site of battlefield somewhere far from Konoha village. Because at this time, Yama was inside the spherical shell made up of truth-seeking orbs, so Toneri was neither able to see him nor was he able to sense his existence. As such, the first thing that attracted Toneri's attention on the battlefield was the incomparably huge wooden figure with 9 closed eyes. And Toneri immediately recognized it. That is, demonic statue of the outer path, Gedo Mazo. Although he has never personally seen Gedo Mazo before, however, that doesn't mean he doesn't know about it, or doesn't know what it looks like. The descendants of Hamura on the moon shoulder the responsibility of keeping the husk of Jubi sealed on the moon. But the fact of the matter is, they have failed to fulfill their responsibility. Gedo Mazo was stolen from the moon several decades ago, and to this day they had found no clue as to who stole it and who did they steal it. Of course there were assumptions, but no solid evidence, as all the searches resulted in failure. The descendants of Hamura have failed to fulfill one responsibility they were given. Such a thing is very humiliating for the proud Otsutsuki clan. Damn them all! Even before he witnessed the scene on the battlefield, Toneri was already in a state of sorrow brought on by his father's death, and not being able to accompany his dying father during his final moments because someone stupid in the shinobi world tried to steal chakra from the giant Tenseigan. So the moment he saw Gedo Mazo, Toneri's mood fluctuated, and the words of the dead elder resounded in his mind. We of the Otsutsuki clan have been observing the shinobi world on the earth for centuries now, and have reached a conclusion. The people on earth have forgotten what chakra truly represents. They dared to weaponize chakra for themselves and used it to fight meaningless wars, which ultimately led to the failure of the shinobi sect established by Rikudo Sennin. The current shinobi world has decayed beyond redemption, and ruin is the only means of salvation for them. Toneri, you are the last hope of the Otsutsuki clan, so you must remember Hamura's wishes and the Otsutsuki clan decree. He snapped in anger that surged from within, and his killing intent skyrocketed. The emotional, young, immature, and inexperienced Toneri did not care about finding the person responsible for stealing the chakra from the giant Tenseigan on the moon at this moment. Instead, he transferred his vision from the battlefield in the Land of Fire to the Earth, to the endless space. After searching for just a while, he selected a huge asteroid drifting in space somewhat closer to the Earth, and then dragged it all the way towards the Earth, and more specifically towards the battlefield at the Land of Fire. If any space scientists past the fourth dimension wall were to observe the asteroid that Toneri selected, they would immediately identify it as 99942 Apophis, an asteroid that can cause damage equivalent to 5866. 67 nuclear bombs should it hit the Earth, which, although unlikely, may happen in the year 2029. Translator's note: for those who don't know what it entails, no need to freak out. It wouldn't be the complete extinction of life on Earth, unlike the time with dinosaurs. Just a few 100 million or possibly 1 billion people will die or get injured, along with countless other phenomena that would make survival difficult. But anyway, and Toneri selected the very same asteroid that can cause such devastating damage. And in order to avoid the situation of stirring the grass and startling the snake, Toneri also made sure to not cut off the ongoing resonance between the giant Tenseigan on the moon and the shinobi world, all while guiding 99942 Apophis towards the Earth in order to wipe away all those irredeemable shinobi of the Earth.